Today we're going to take a look at an Octoprint management interface called OctoFarm. There are probably more than a few of us out there right now with multiple 3D printers trying to get as many print jobs done as possible. And Octoprint can make that a lot easier, especially if you install multiple instances on one Raspberry Pi, on Linux, or even on Windows. But monitoring all those different instances can be kind of a pain. Well, that's where OctoFarm comes in. It's a really nice looking interface that you can see all of your different Octoprint instances in one pane of glass. OctoFarm is by James McKay. He has done a really great job at putting this together. I've been following this project for a long time now. I actually did an install of OctoFarm a couple of months ago for my Patreon supporters. This is a screenshot of the most recent version of OctoFarm. It really does help consolidate all your different Octoprint instances so you don't have to go around from web page to web page to see what your printers are doing. It has really helped me to monitor all of my printers from just one screen. I really think it's useful. Again, at this time, a lot of users might need it. Now we're going to work on all the steps of getting OctoFarm installed on native Linux, because that's the server that I mostly run. But you can run OctoFarm pretty much anywhere, even on your Windows desktop. If you can run Node.js and MongoDB, you can probably run OctoFarm. The Tinker Dad has put together some great documentation on installing OctoFarm on a Docker container. So if you have access to Docker, that might be a pretty clean solution as well. All of that information will be in the description below. But now let's jump right into command line and start installing OctoFarm. So here we are in Putty. We're actually using the same server we did for the OctoLinux video. We're running Ubuntu Linux. Ubuntu is probably one of the more common versions of Linux that you're going to see. The commands might be a little different on some distributions of Linux, but you can probably get around that pretty easily. So we've logged in. We're currently on version 18.0.4. That is the LTS version, so long-term support. And if you need to know how to do an install on just a regular desktop or even a server of Ubuntu, that is included in the OctoLinux video, and I will leave a link to that and put it up in the corner. So you can just do the install and then come back to this video right here. Now the first thing I recommend you do anytime you're doing a Linux project is to go ahead and update and upgrade all your packages. So we'll make sure all the repos are up to date. We're going to do sudo apt update. It's going to want your sudo password. And after that's completed, we're going to run an upgrade. Sudo apt upgrade. Depending on the last time you did this, it could be a rather lengthy process. It might take just a little bit of time, so give it a bit. And we're just going to hit enter to agree to install all these new packages. While that's upgrading, I wanted to point out that if you search for OctoFarm GitHub out here on Google, there might be a couple of different entries. Looks like there might be a couple of projects called OctoFarm. The one we're working with is not expected yet, his GitHub. That's James. So that's the GitHub you want to go to. James has recently updated the instructions for installing OctoFarm. They're pretty concise, so we're pretty much going to go off just what he has down here, but I'm going to walk you through all the steps just to make sure you understand how it's installed. Again, I mentioned Tinker Dad. He does have the Docker install. We're just going to do the production install. That's down here. So our upgrade's complete. It's probably a good idea to go ahead and reboot. You can do sudo reboot. When the reboot's complete, you can come up here and restart our session. And we'll log back in. And now we should be ready to start the install of OctoFarm. Now there are some prereqs for OctoFarm. You have to have a database, which we're going to use MongoDB. You have to have Node.js, which is probably available on most distributions of Linux, but we're going to use a little bit different version. It does have to be version 12 or up. NPM, that usually comes with Node.js, but I have seen some distributions where you had to install it separately, so we'll go over that. And you should also have Git. Git is just handy to have all the time, but we'll make sure that's installed as well. So to get us where we need to go to download the 13.x version of Node.js, we're going to use a curl command to update those source files. This is a script that's just going to update our repositories so that we can use and install that 13.x Node.js version. So we'll run this command, enter your sudo password, and now it's updated the repositories. Now we can go ahead and issue the install command for Node.js. And it just puts it right here for you if you'd like to copy and paste it. You're just doing a sudo apt-get install -y Node.js. That -y just means you don't have to confirm it with that enter key like we did before. So let's hit enter. Node.js is installed. You can check the version if you like. You can do Node.js dash version. We're on 13.12, so we're good there. Now we need to install the database. We're going to use MongoDB. We're going to use apt to do that as well. So sudo apt install MongoDB. MongoDB is now installed. And let's go ahead and install Git just to make sure it's up to date and we have a version of it. You probably don't need to do this on a lot of distributions, but it won't hurt anything. Sudo apt install Git. Already its newest version, and that's good. So now we're ready to use Git to clone the OctoFarm GitHub source. It took off automatically, but you just do a git clone and then that location from the GitHub page. It's just GitHub, the not expected yet GitHub, then octofarm.git. So now it's been downloaded. If you do an ls, we're just going to install this in our home directory. That's where we're at right now. This is home. Again, this is the OctoLinux server, so it does have Octoprint on it, but we don't need to do that for the OctoFarm install. And here's the OctoFarm directory that was created during that git clone. So we can change directory into OctoFarm, cd OctoFarm. Take a look in here. And from here, we're going to do the npm install. That's going to install the npm packages. So just do npm install. You do have to be in the OctoFarm directory for this to work. The install was successful. There might be a few warnings in here. As long as there's no errors, you should be good to go. Now we need to make a quick change so that we can use MongoDB as our database. It is already installed, but it has an IP address in it that needs to be changed to our local host name. So if you display again here in OctoFarm, we're going to change directory into config. We can take a look in here with an ls. And there should be a db.js file. So we're going to do sudo nano db.js. And you can see up here it's been updated with just this IP. That's not our IP. We have MongoDB installed on this machine, so we can just search for it internally. So we're just going to use localhost. That tells it when it makes a MongoDB call that it's going to look internally for the Mongo database. So we can Control X, Y, and enter to save. You will need to know the IP of your server. You should know it because you're probably logged into Putty, but if you don't for some reason, you can check that with an ifconfig-a. You'll have a lot of different interfaces, but the actual interfaces will be up here. This is the one I'm currently using, and I'm on 1.150. So from here, I'm going to back up one directory. You probably don't need to, but I'm going to. Back to OctoFarm, and you can start up the OctoFarm application. So npm start. Unless you use screen or something to run it in the background, it's just going to sit here and occupy your terminal window. But we have a workaround for that. I'm going to show you how to get it to start on reboot. That should take care of that. But for now, we can just test it with our browser while it's sitting here running in terminal. So let's open up our browser. And we're going to go to our server IP, 192.168.1.150. And we're going to go to port 4000. So colon 4000. And here's our OctoFarm server up and running. The first time you do need to register. I believe this is only an internal thing, but you can enter your name, your username, your password. If you already have an account, you can just log in. I do. And when you're logged in, it's going to go to this default screen because you don't have any printers set up yet, so you can just hit Set Up Printers. This is going to take you to the printer setup screen. You need to know the IP of your Octoprint instance, the port that it's running on, your camera URL if you have one, and Octoprint's API key. There's one change that you need to make in Octoprint to get this to work correctly, and we'll go over that right now. Let's just take one of our Octoprint instances. We'll log in. We're going to go up here to the settings wrench, and we're going to go to API. You need your API key, so you can go ahead and copy that. But you have to have this CORS checkmark checked for OctoFarm to be able to pull all the information that it needs. So if it's not checked, check this, and then reboot your Raspberry Pi. Mine's already checked, but we'll just go ahead and hit save here. Once you have checked that CORS box, you can come up here to System, and just hit Reboot System. Then you should be good to go. OctoFarm can talk to your instance. By the way, when OctoFarm pulls the instance information, it's going to use this name up here. And that one is set in Appearance. So if you go back to Settings, go down to Appearance, this is the name, the title that OctoFarm is going to pull in. So that's all the information you need to pull Octoprint into OctoFarm. So let's go back to OctoFarm. We're going to put in the IP of our Pi. By default, Octoprint uses port 80. If you're using a multi-instance install, you can just add the additional port number right here. OctoFarm is also going to try to pull the default CAM URL. So we're just going to leave that empty for now. You can change it if your CAM is on a different port. And then we're going to paste in our API key that we copied from Octoprint. So let's add that. And you can add these all at once, or you can come back and add them later. I'm going to add one more that's not on port 80 just to show you. It's on that same Pi, 192.168.1.183, but it's on port 5001. You will have to make sure that that CORS API box is checked for each instance if you have multiples on your Pi. Let's go take a look at this 5001 instance and get its API key. So back to Octoprint, we're just going to go over to 5001, and we'll go to Settings up here, API. We do have the CORS box checked, we don't have to mess with that. And we'll just copy its API key, back to OctoFarm. We'll paste in our API key, and I don't have a camera on that, so I'm not going to update the URL. Let's add printer. One last one I'm going to add for this video because it does have a camera. That's 192.168.1.185. It is on default port 80. We will have to go get its API key. Go to the Control tab. You see we have our camera right here. We should be able to pull that into OctoFarm. Let's get our API key. Always make sure you have the CORS checked. Back to OctoFarm. We'll paste our API key right here. Again, since the camera URL is default right now, we shouldn't have to update that. We can just go ahead and hit Add Printer. And then once you're satisfied with all your printers, you have to come down here and hit Save. It is really frustrating if you don't remember to do that because you've just lost all your work. Make sure you hit Save. And now it's going to pull in all of your printer info. My printers are in various states, but you should be able to see your name. And then if you click on each one of the printers, if you hit Settings, you should be able to control it, use the terminal, change your settings if you'd like. A lot of useful stuff in here, and you can just go to OctoFarm to control it. You don't have to go to each Pi. Really handy stuff. So this is the dashboard view. There's a lot of different stats up here, lots of good stuff. But you can also change your view. So you can come up here to monitoring, and you can do the panel view. That just puts all of them out here as tiles, but only the functioning ones. You can change a lot of the settings about how panel view works. You can just go up here to Systems and change things up if you'd like. A lot of these settings are down here in Client. Here's your panel view settings, your list view settings, all that good stuff. Back to monitoring, you can also do the list view, which is the one that I really like. So all of the printers that are online are just going to be listed all in a row. I find that to be the most handy. Back to monitoring, you can also do a camera view, which is kind of like the panel view. It just lays it all out in tiles, but you just see the cameras. I don't have cameras on those other two printers, but you can see the one over there on the Mark II. So that's how that would look if you have multiple cameras. There's also a file manager up here. It's going to try to pull all the information on all of the files that you have for all of the Pis. So you can kind of sort through some of your G-code, use this how you wish, or there's even a button down here where you can try to move that file around in between the Pis if you'd like. You can do multi-upload, so you can upload it to multiple Pis, which can be really handy if you're printing the same part over and over. So definitely check out File Manager, and there's also a History tab. This shows you every print that you've done, how long it took according to Octoprint, however accurate that is, and when it took place. It will give you a thumbs up or thumbs down if you failed it. This is also going to be really handy to have to try to calculate how long a print's going to take or how much time you have into a print job. So there's lots of handy stuff out here. So that's OctoFarm. Let's jump back to Linux. So to get out of the terminal and to shut down OctoFarm, since we just started it right here, you can just do a Control-C. And you don't want to have your terminal open and running just to run OctoFarm. You want it to come up every time you start your server. And there's a couple different ways you could do this. You could do it with a cron job. You could probably do it in like rc.local. But npms can be just a little bit tricky to start like that. So I am going to use a package called PM2 to get this done. It's pretty easy to set up, and you can see the jobs that are running using PM2, the different npm startups. I'm just going to do sudo npm install -g PM2. We'll hit enter. And to start your Node.js application like OctoFarm is, most of the time those are defaulted to app.js. If you do an ls, you can see your app.js right here. We're going to start that with pm2. So we're going to do pm2 start app.js. Now you can see down here that OctoFarm is running, gives you the version. It spawned a pm2 daemon to run that under. So now your terminal is free. Now we're going to use the pm2 startup command to generate some script so that this will start every time the server boots. So we'll do pm2 startup systemd. That's going to output this script. We're going to copy this line right here. Just highlight it. You paste with your right mouse button. And we're just going to run that command to update our environment. So just right click, paste, hit enter. That's updated our startup. Now we'll do a pm2 space save. And we should be good to go. You can do a pm2 list to show your apps. There's our OctoFarm. Let's reboot just to make sure it works. Sudo reboot. When the server comes back up, we'll restart the session. And if you do your pm2 list again, you should see that OctoFarm started up. There it is, right there. Back to the browser. We'll just hit refresh since we rebooted. You will have to log back in. But there's your print farm, safe and sound, and it will come up every time it boots. Also, if it crashes, pm2 is going to restart it for you. So that's also a nice feature. A note on this, if you'd like to install OctoFarm on a Raspberry Pi, currently MongoDB does not support a 32-bit architecture. It does have to be 64-bit, so you're going to have a problem there. There might be a workaround out there, but currently this isn't going to work on the Raspberry Pi. But with that said, what if you don't have a Linux server laying around or a laptop that you can install Linux on to run OctoFarm? Well, you can just install it on your Windows desktop and use it from there. So why not? Let's walk through those steps real quick. You still need the same items to run it. So we need to download Node.js for Windows. We'll just search Node.js Windows. We'll go to download Node.js. And we'll hit the Windows installer. We'll click down here. We'll get the install started. We'll hit next. We accept. Next. It's fine in the default program files location. Next. These defaults up here are fine as well. It is going to come with the npm package manager, like I showed you before. We'll hit next. I am going to let it automatically install the packages that are needed for use inside Node.js. If the program needs one, it will install it automatically. So we'll tick this box, hit next, and we'll hit install. Node.js install is finished. It's going to pop up this window. We can just go ahead and hit any key to continue and just bang through all these screens. The PowerShell window will come up. It's going to install a couple of things. It's going through all these install steps because we ticked that box during the installation. You probably don't need all these extra tools, but I'd rather have them installed now in case I need them later, so I don't have to go back and install one at a time. There is a lot of stuff that isn't needed for OctoFarm. If you're not planning on doing any development or anything like that on this computer, you might just want to leave that box unticked and continue on. When all the packages have been upgraded, you can just hit enter to exit, and the Node.js install is complete. Now we also need MongoDB. You can get that for Windows. We can just search for MongoDB Windows. We'll just go to the Download Center, and we'll go to Server, and we're going to go with the current release, Windows 64, MSI install package, and we'll hit Download. We'll click down here. We'll start the install of MongoDB. Hit Next. We accept the terms. Next. We'll just do Complete. Here we're going to install MongoDB as a service, so it's going to run every time your PC starts. We're going to run it as a network service user. The service name can stay the same, MongoDB, and we'll just hit Next. Go ahead and install Compass. In case there's anything wrong, you'll have a GUI interface to talk to MongoDB. Hit Next, and we'll hit Install. The install is complete. MongoDB has started. You can just close the wizard. We really don't need anything in here. Just start using Compass, and you can close this down. It's going to stay running in the background. Just hit finish on your install. And now we can start the OctoFarm install on the PC. So back to GitHub. Up here at the top where it says clone or download, we're just going to download a zip file. We'll hit download zip. We'll head to downloads. You can unzip this file wherever you'd like to deal with it. In Windows command line, I like to be as close to the root directory as possible just because it's easier to use. So I'm going to right click, extract all. And I'm just going to put it in its own folder called OctoFarm on the C drive. We'll hit extract. It automatically opens up our OctoFarm folder. We have our OctoFarm master folder. And it's going to be all the same files that we did in Linux. Now we can just use them with Node.js on Windows. Personally, I think the easiest way to do this is to jump into command line. So if you come down here to the Windows key and you type in CMD for command prompt, it'll bring up command prompt. You can also do this in PowerShell if you'd like. But for Windows, we're going to do a CD /. That'll get us to the C directory. We'll do a CD OctoFarm. That gets us into OctoFarm. If you do a dir, that will list everything in that directory. We have our OctoFarm master. We can CD into OctoFarm master. Do another dir. Here's all the OctoFarm files. And just like we did before, since we have Node.js installed, we're going to do an npm install. The install worked just fine. Close some of these windows. We'll take a look again with a dir. Let's go into config, cd config. Take another look, dir. There is our db.js file. MongoDB is living on this PC. The Windows text editor is a bit clunky, but you can do that from the Explorer as well. It doesn't really matter. You could use Notepad++. That's my preferred method. If you're good at the command line text editor in Windows, go for that. But I'm just going to open up the File Explorer, head to C, OctoFarm, OctoFarm master, config, and I'm going to right click on this db.js. I'm going to edit with Notepad++. And just like we did in Linux, I'm going to take out this IP and I'm going to use localhost. That tells it to use MongoDB that's on this machine. We'll hit save. We can close this. Go ahead and close Explorer. We shouldn't need any more edits. And now we can just start OctoFarm. npm start. It's going to come up with a security warning. Would you like to allow this to be able to access your internet or your network? We're going to go ahead and allow it. And then up here in your browser, you can now access the OctoFarm instance that's on this PC. We can just do localhost :port 4000. And there's the OctoFarm that's running on this machine. You can also access it via your IP if you'd like. You can look that up in command prompt as well. Just do an IP config. So we'll open up another one real quick just so I can show you that. Just do IP config. And here's the IP of this PC. But localhost will work just fine. So same thing, you can go ahead and register, log in. You'll get to the setup printer screen. You can just hit setup and we can run through the same process. Let's just do one real quick. I've still got one open over here. So 185, we are on port 80, that's the defaults. It does have a camera, but we're going to go with the default URL. If you have multiple instances, you can change that right there. We'll go back up here, we'll recopy our API. Even if you're using it just on Windows, you still need cores. We'll paste it right here. Add printer. And we'll just add one since we've already walked through this. Just rinse, repeat, hit save. It's updating your MongoDB database. Here's our printer. Here's all our information. Exactly the same as if it was running on Linux. Go over to camera view. There's our printer and our camera. Now, just like in Linux, we still have this window down here we have to deal with. So you can either come in here and start it manually every time you start your computer. You could probably make a shortcut icon on your desktop if you like, or you can have it start automatically when your machine boots. Again, just like in Linux, we can use PM2 in Windows. It works the same. So we're just going to Control-C out of here right now. You want to terminate the job? Yes. So from here, I'm just going to use npm to install it. We'll do npm install pm2-g. It's been installed. We can start our .js app file. So pm2 start app.js. There it is running, just like Linux. It's running in the background. To look at this again, you can still use your pm2 list. To get it to start automatically, we do need to install the Windows startup code. So we're going to do npm install pm2-windows-startup-g. That will give us a program in Windows we can use to automatically start it. So now we can do pm2-startup install. It's successfully been added to the startup registry. And since OctoFarm is already running out there in PM2, we can just do PM2 save, and we should be good to go. Also, it makes it more crash resistant. So now when you reboot, OctoFarm will start up automatically on your Windows machine. So if you don't have a Linux system sitting around or a laptop you can put Linux on, this is just a way you can use your existing Windows computer to run OctoFarm. I really like OctoFarm. It has been really handy for me. James has done an incredible job and he keeps making updates, so you might want to go pull from GitHub occasionally and update your files. But I am really excited to see what James does with this, and I love to see things like this grow. We'll see where it goes from here. And there we go. We're up and running with OctoFarm, and now we can see all of our different Octoprint instances from one page. We don't have to go searching through IPs and port numbers just to see what our printers are doing. And especially right now, this has been super handy for me. I've really enjoyed watching the OctoFarm project grow, and I wish James all the luck as he continues to develop it. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you did, please consider giving it a thumbs up or subscribing to my channel. If not, leave your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.